You might think Little House on the Prairie was all warm family values and frontier charm, but here's the shocking truth. Some episodes were darker than horror movies. Behind those rolling hills and bonnets were stories of death, disease, violence, and tragedies that left fans stunned. Today, we're counting down 13 times the series completely broke away from its wholesome image and delivered something raw, unsettling, and unforgettable. You may never see Walnut Grove the same way again. Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Number 1. Mary Ingalls goes blind. Imagine waking up one morning and realizing the world has gone dark forever. That's exactly what happened to Mary Ingalls, and her sudden blindness shook viewers as much as it shook her family. The loss came out of nowhere, tearing away the stability the Ingalls seemed to hold on to through hardship. Melissa Sue Anderson's performance stood out because she carried such raw silence and fear, proving this wasn't just another plotline. It changed the soul of the series. Mary's new life at the blind school gave audiences a mix of heartbreak and strength, showing resilience born directly from loss. Number 2. Mr. Edwards' disappearance. What really happened to Mr. Edwards when he just seemed to vanish from Walnut Grove? One day, the rough-and-tumble mountain man with the tender heart was part of the Ingalls' daily life, and the next he was gone with barely an explanation. Behind the scenes, Victor French's exit came from shifting creative choices and the inevitable contract changes that often hit long-running shows. For fans, though, the effect was personal. His children suddenly lacked their father's steady presence, and the town itself lost one of its friendliest anchors. That void reminded viewers that frontier life was never guaranteed. People could disappear without warning. Number 3. The Olsens' dark side. Were the Olsens really meant to make us laugh, or were they hiding something darker under all that fussiness? Harriet's constant bragging and her obsession with being important in town often turned funny moments into something downright cruel. She thrived on gossip, spreading whispers that quietly tore people down. Then there was Nellie, who loved to humiliate her classmates, always twisting her privilege into power. What seemed playful at first became social lessons about money, jealousy, and the way cruelty can pass from parent to child. In the end, their behavior revealed how respectability sometimes masked bullying and deep hypocrisy. Number 4. The Locust Plague. How do you fight when the enemy isn't a person, but the sky itself? That's the haunting question the Locust Plague forced on Walnut Grove. Out of nowhere, dark clouds weren't storms at all, but endless swarms of insects devouring everything in sight. Fields carefully planted through sweat and hope vanished under moving wings, leaving breadwinners helpless. The sight was unforgettable. Millions crawling, chewing, flying, a wall of nature's power facing tiny human efforts. What made it powerful was how quickly a year's work vanished. Families watched entire futures stripped in an instant. The plague showed survival meant enduring what no pioneer, no matter how strong, could ever stop. Number 5. The fire that nearly killed Carrie. Picture a little girl surrounded by roaring flames while her parents stand frozen, powerless to reach her. That was Carrie's nightmare as the blind school caught fire, a moment where innocence and danger collided. The blaze spread fast, reminding viewers just how unsafe wooden buildings and open flames made frontier homes. For Charles and Caroline, the fear was unbearable. They had already carried so much loss, and now they faced the thought of another child slipping away. Carrie's survival brought relief, but the fire left its mark. It proved disaster could strike at any time, leaving audiences uneasy about what might follow. Number 6. Albert's addiction. What happens when the pain of one young son pushes him toward a struggle that feels ahead of its time? That's exactly what we saw when Albert turned to morphine, a storyline that shocked audiences who expected wholesome prairie drama. His downward spiral wasn't soft. It showed sleepless nights, trembling hands, and an ugly battle with guilt that pulled him apart from the Ingalls' comforting image. For viewers in the late 1970s, the parallels to real fears about rising drug use hit hard. By the end, the desperate fight to save Albert reflected both frontier values and modern anxieties, leaving everyone shaken. Number 7. Mary's baby dies in a fire. Losing a baby is unthinkable, and for Mary, it happened in the most brutal way, through fire. The blind school blaze tore apart everything she had finally built. For a character who had already endured the loss of her sight, finally finding love and motherhood felt like a rare gift. That gift was destroyed when little Adam Kendall Jr. died in the flames. The tragedy deepened with Alice Garvey's death, leaving families shattered and fans horrified. The story's weight fell heavier, knowing Albert accidentally sparked the disaster, burdening him with guilt. The fire proved no character was beyond tragedy, raising the emotional stakes forever. Number 8. Walnut Grove blown up. Few TV moments hit harder than watching Walnut Grove reduced to rubble by its own people. In The Last Farewell, the townsfolk chose destruction over handing their home to greedy developers, turning a goodbye into shocking annihilation. Michael Landon made the choice to literally blow up the sets, ensuring the town fans had loved for years could never return. That act burned permanence into the farewell, erasing more than scenery. It destroyed a community we had grown with. The explosions worked as rebellion and as grief. Walnut Grove ended with fire and smoke, surviving only in memory, never in place. Number 9. The rape episode, Sylvia. How did a 1970s family drama decide to show a crime so horrifying that many networks avoided it altogether? The Sylvia storyline introduced a teenage girl being stalked and attacked by a masked man, instantly marking it as one of the show's darkest hours. Instead of using graphic imagery, the episode relied on suggestion, eerie silence, and fear shown through Sylvia's eyes. The horror came not just from the act, but from what followed: whispers around town, parents trying to control her future, and the weight of judgment pressing down. In the end, Sylvia left audiences unsettled, sparking debates that still continue today. Number 10. Nellie's cruelty. How does one child turn into the villain of an entire community? That was Nellie Olson's role, and she mastered it early. She wasn't content with simple teasing. Nellie schemed, manipulated, and went out of her way to humiliate Laura and others who couldn't fight back. Much of this behavior was reinforced by her mother, Harriet, who often rewarded sharp words and selfishness instead of correcting them. Each storyline used Nellie's cruelty as a kind of morality lesson, showing how envy and arrogance could poison relationships. Audiences laughed at her tantrums, but beneath the humor sat a clear warning about cruelty eating away at community trust. Number 11. The baby swap scandal. What if one day you found out the baby you had been feeding, rocking, and loving was not actually your own? That staggering thought became reality in the baby swap storyline, and it rattled every family involved. Mothers who thought they finally felt secure were suddenly torn between blood ties and the bonds they had already formed. On the frontier, where family meant everything, that choice cut deeper than almost anything else. Neighbors whispered, judgments spread, and the entire town weighed in on something impossibly private. The scandal shattered illusions of purity, leaving everyone questioning what truly defines a family. Number 12. The plague in Walnut Grove. What happens when disease spreads so fast that even a church becomes a morgue? That's exactly what Walnut Grove faced when typhus swept through town, bringing sudden fever and death to families who thought they were safe. Doc Baker urged quarantine, cutting neighbors off from one another in hopes of saving lives. Fear crept into every home as families realized survival could mean complete isolation. With no cure in sight, the town's strength unraveled, showing how limited frontier medicine really was. The outbreak exposed how fragile community bonds were, making this one of the series' most unsettling chapters. Number 13. Michael Landon's off-screen control. Was the darkest force behind Little House on the Prairie not the prairie itself, but its most beloved father figure? Michael Landon, who played Pa, often held the reins off-screen as tightly as he did on camera. He wrote, directed, and shaped major storylines, many of which leaned into heavy tragedy. Think of the town being blown apart in the finale, or risky plots exploring drug addiction and sexual violence. Bold moves for family television. His perfectionist streak pushed boundaries, but it sometimes frustrated cast members who felt overshadowed. In the end, Landon's control explained why Prairie life carried so much heartbreak alongside its moments of hope. Little House on the Prairie was never only about homesteads and Sunday dinners. It showed suffering, loss, and resilience in ways that still unsettle us today. Every heartbreak and every survival story mirrored the struggles real families faced, long before television saw reality. That's why this series deserves another watch, not for nostalgia or simple comfort, but for how it laid bare human endurance. Look closely and Walnut Grove stops being an ideal. It feels hauntingly real. Maybe that's why, even decades later, it lingers. Not as paradise, but as a place where survival meant facing the unthinkable.